And now to a story about holding our city leaders accountable. Just last month, half of Denver City Council members were no-show for a very important conversation on the death of an inmate that cost you, by the way, the taxpayers, nearly $5 million. Today, the city's new head of safety and the sheriff were in attendance to respond to a scathing report from the city's watchdog. Once again, we sent Denver 7's Jennifer Kovaleski to take attendance and find out what's being done to prevent another tragedy inside our jails.
The optics that set it all last month.
We don't even have quorum for
with half of the councilors' chairs empty for an important meeting.
Nick Mitchell, independent monitor in
where Denver's watchdog presented his findings about how the city failed in inmate Michael Marshall's death, suffocating while being restrained at the Denver jail in 2015. A stark comparison to today's packed committee room. As Denver's new head of safety and top deputy took the heat from elected leaders and responded to this scathing report from the city's independent monitor.
Looking in light of this report and this horrific incident.
After all, a mentally ill man died. And the city's watchdog says city employees made grave mistakes, costing taxpayers nearly $5 million. But despite all that, none of the deputies seen in this video restraining Marshall were disciplined.
When I arrived and I saw that we have an individual died in jail, that there's questions about use of force and no one has been terminated, that is a question.
Just 2 months on the job, Troy Riggs, Denver's director of safety, points to a recent change in how deputies can appeal their discipline as a step towards fixing the lack of accountability seen in the Marshall case, which basically puts the burden of proof on deputies instead of the city. He also shined a light on what he sees as a mental health crisis in our community.
I do not believe Mr. Marshall should have been incarcerated. His death should have never occurred because he was in a jail setting. He should have been somewhere getting assistance.
Riggs says he plans to work with nonprofits and city leaders to find beds that don't come with handcuffs, to help those struggling get the help they need.
I have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of this city, and I'm going to ask their patience as we develop data, we share that data, we get input.
Now, the chair of this committee, Councilman Paul Cashman, told me that he liked what he heard today, but the real test comes in July. That's when we see proof. That's when we expect a full report on the ongoing reform efforts, the data you heard the head of safety mention, and where the department goes from here. I'm Jennifer Kovaleski for Denver 7.